Good evening and welcome to the June 9th Civil Service Commission meeting. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Coleman.
Here.
Commissioner Devine.
Here.
Commissioner Gregorian.
Here.
Gantis.
Yes.
Manukian.
Yes. What's
Minutes.
I have one correction to the minutes on page 2, second paragraph, where it says, Commissioner Devine asked if the commission chooses not to accept this letter, would they be invoking any rights they might have? And the word that was used was revoking, not invoking.
Okay, is that the only correction?
That's the only correction.
Okay. Do I have a motion
I move they be accepted
with the changes?
with the changes.
Second?
Second.
May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Coleman.
Abstain.
Commissioner Devine.
Yes.
Gregorian.
Yes.
Gantis.
Yes.
Manukian.
Yes. What's next? Oral communication.
Oral communications.
I don't have any cards. Is there anyone in the public that's here for oral communication? I see none. What's next?
Recruitment examination status report.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is an item for your information only. It's our recruitment and examination status report showing all the activity with recruitment amongst the various staff conducting them. You have generally the dates, the departments of exams and such. If you have any questions on this report, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. If not, it is a note and file item.
Any questions from commissioners? I see none. What's next?
Eligible list established.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this too is an item for your information only, and this just reflects the eligible lists that have been established by staff since our last meeting. Since we only met just 2 weeks ago, we only have 2 eligible lists to add. These two are both promotional recruitments. One is a senior office specialist in GWP, the other is an electrical engineer in GWP. Again, the number of applicants is listed on the report, along with the total number of candidates who ultimately made it onto the eligibility list in the far right column. If you have questions, again, I'd be happy to try and answer them on this report.
Any questions, gentlemen? I see none. What's next?
Revised class specification for approval, integrated waste supervisory and integrated waste collection series.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a actually 2 specifications for existing job series within the Integrated Waste Management Department. The one series is for the Integrated Waste Management Supervisory Series, which consists of the supervisor, the assistant administrator, and administrator, and then the other one deals with the 2 positions, or the 2 classifications within the collection series, integrated waste worker and integrated waste truck operator. Most of the changes to this specification relate to some of the new formatting changes we've done on these specifications, and there are some substantive changes to each of these series. In the management series, for example, we have some discussion of the requirement to be available after hours. Also in that series, we've brought back a desirable qualification for a Class 2 commercial driver's license. I think that had been required long ago in the past, and then we had eliminated that, and now we're bringing that back just as a desirable qualification. Again, because these are supervisors, these aren't actually the people out there doing the collections, but I think there are occasions when it would be helpful for even the supervisory staff to have the ability to move or operate the trucks. These specifications also do, both of them, reflect the recent change to where this group oversees the street sweeping operation, and I think that is addressed in both of these series, as well as the collection series, where it talks about the employee's ability to drive and operate various types of trucks and equipment. That would include filling in on the street sweeping crew as well. that's essentially the substantive elements of these two specifications. There was also a concern raised a few meetings ago by Commissioner Coleman about the use of the term combustible in the description of the refuse material. And again, we have staff here to address any questions or concerns on that front as well. We do have Mario Nunez, who's the Integrated Waste Administrator, as well as, I see Mr. Zern is here.
He's hiding back there.
And who is the Director of Public Works. And we also have Dean Miner, who is one of the supervisors for Integrated Waste as well.
Okay.
And Ms. Akopian is here as well. So
Great.
If there are questions.
Yeah, I do have a question. Under definition where it does say under supervision performs, this, I don't have a problem with the management specifications whatsoever. I'm dealing specifically with the integrated waste collection series, the waste worker, the integrated waste worker, integrated waste truck operator, where it says under supervision performs manual work in the collection of combustible and non-combustible refuge, recyclables, and yard trimmings throughout the city. And under requirements, knowledge, skills, and abilities, I don't see anywhere in this spec education, experience, whatnot, that gives any indication that these individuals who actually do the work on the trucks have been properly trained to spot and deal with combustibles. It just so happened I was sitting on my front porch the day after the last meeting was discussed, and it was trash day. And a truck went up the street and came down. I waved at them to stop, and I actually talked to three of them. I identified myself, told them that I was on the Civil Service Commission, that this was being discussed. I asked them how long they had worked for the city of Glendale, and it was anywhere from 1 to 3 years, and none of them. I asked them specifically if they had had any training whatsoever in dealing with combustible waste, and all three of them told me no. So I'd like to know what's going on.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Mr. Coleman. Combustible, non-combustible are two definitions in the code for the waste.
Okay.
And the way they're split is non-combustible is rock, dirt, other inert materials, and metal. Everything else is combustible. These are carried over from the days when the city owned an incinerator and we used to burn our garbage. Plain and simply why the definition is that way. Non-combustibles had to be separated. There was weight limits. Combustibles was everything else. That's what was burned. So combustible is trash that is capable of being burned. It doesn't have the designation flammable, toxic, hazardous, biological. So it's an old definition carried over. It essentially is the trash. All of it is combustible. It could be burned, or most of it could be burned. As far as the training goes, when we hire somebody, we don't ask that they essentially have that kind of training. We train them ourselves. We train them on how to handle and process waste. We train them to look for waste that isn't designated or categorized or is not the type of waste we want to collect, such as flammable, toxic, biological. If they see something like that, they know the procedure. They step back, they call their supervisor, and we take whatever measures are necessary to deal with that. If a truck has a fire, and we occasionally do have a fire, they know the proper procedure of what to do in that case. Step away from the vehicle, call the fire department, call their supervisor. The fire department will come out. Most of the times they tell us we have to lay the load down, and then they take care of extinguishing the fire, and then we pick it all back up and take it away. So it's really an old definition carried over from the days of incineration. Our folks are definitely trained on how to handle that. I'm guessing here, but because we never really refer to it as combustible, non-combustible. The three gentlemen you talked to, if we said it's the trash, they go, oh, yeah, I've been trained on that. I'm sure, I would hope that they would say that.
I think post 9/11, everything, anytime you say combustible,
Yep.
we're thinking
I mean,
that we need to call in the bomb squad.
I agree with Mr. Chair.
Unfortunately.
And I think it
That's
comes
what-
out as combustible. Is that flammable, highly flammable, hard to handle?
Explosive.
Explosive as we would need a hazmat crew to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I can understand that from the
I-
definition.
Mr. Ahern, I've got to tell you, perfectly honest, these guys didn't have a clue.
I think it's the wrong word. That's the.
That's my guess.
I think so too, because based on what you're telling me, yard trimmings is combustible.
It can be burned.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so
Technically, the recyclables could be burned too, but we divert those for other
Right.
means. So you really get down to what this non-combustible definition of inert waste, rocks, things that can't be burned, heavy metal, and it's carried over from the old days. Question may be, why don't we change it? To be honest with you, we may be moving.
I'd certainly like you to be honest with me.
I think I usually am. We are actually moving back towards potentially
Burning?
putting back together a waste conversion that includes some type of incineration, pyrolysis, or gasification. So the definition may come back into play as far as the separation of the waste. But I think more than anything, it's an old definition carried over, and our guys are definitely, our staff is definitely trained in how to handle the waste. It's just that combustible definition, and I think Chairman Mnuchin is exactly right. It's the wrong way to ask it, not the right term. If we said, have you been trained in how to handle the waste? I'm sure they would say yes. I would hope they would.
Okay.
Mr. Nunez would hope they would say yes.
All right. You okay with that, Mr. Coleman? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Can we have roll call?
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Commissioner Devine,
Yes.
Gregorian,
Yes.
Yeah.
Gantis,
Yes.
Menuchyan.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Zern. What's next?
New class specification for approval, DNA series.
Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a specification series, again, for approval. This time it is a new job classification series. You may or may not have heard, but the Police Department did receive federal funding to obtain a grant to construct and operate a regional DNA laboratory. This was somewhat of a major coup for the city of Glendale in that this lab, which is going to be built on the actual police facility, will serve not just Glendale, but also a broad area of roughly about a million population, and it'll serve cities of Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, and some of the San Gabriel, San Fernando Valley areas. As I understand it, the processing and analyzing of DNA evidence is sometimes backlogged, and as you well know, it's very important in solving many crimes. So having this facility on site will be a great coup for the city, and I think our main objective right now is to get it up and operated in a timely manner. To start with, we will need, of course, the appropriate staff to oversee it. There are two classifications within this series. There's a DNA lab supervisory position and a DNA specialist position. One is middle management, the other would be a GCA position. And the series and the specifications, along with the essential functions, are all listed here. We don't have a great deal to say on what the minimum qualifications and the job duties are. A lot of that is dictated by the FBI Quality Assurance Office of Standards. But for the most part, again, this is a series we want to put in place, and we will be bringing this item to the City Council shortly to create the new job titles officially in our salary ordinance, and then go ahead and proceed with hiring. I imagine first we're going to hire the supervisor, and then the other position as the lab gets constructed and designed. So with that, the series is here, and we do have staff from the police department to address your questions. Lieutenant Povolitis is here, along with Russ Kwan from my staff, as well as Manya Hunanian. So if you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm
answer.
familiar with this project, and I'm very excited about it. I think you are absolutely right. There is an absolute backlog on a lot of these DNA analysis that's being done, and the nice thing about this is that the police department is going to be able to fit it into their existing lab and still be able to make good use out of it. And they've promised that when they're up and going, the first project that they're going to do is they're going to check into mine and Gantis' DNA and find out what's wrong with us. So
I know what's wrong with you, Mr. You're the second.
Yes, Mr. Gantis.
Are there only going to be 2 positions? I mean, we're not going to have an associate DNA specialist and an assistant DNA specialist and a senior associate DNA specialist? Or, how come we're not having that?
For now,
No, it's just my favorite thing in the government is we always have 18 positions that all have the same title.
just 2 for now.
Yeah, the funding.
You know that's
propose
that's
additional-
my pet peeve.
They only have $1 million in funding, that's all.
Oh, is that going to be enough to cover 2 positions? Is there really not going to be an assistant or an administrator or?
No, I don't believe so. In speaking with Lieutenant Povolitis, there are very few people with these qualifications, and again, the hope is to recruit somebody from, obviously outside. He's actually been scouring the country looking for particularly the supervisor, and hopefully when we're ready to post this as a recruitment, we'll go ahead and fill that and be fortunate enough. I think we've set the salary at an appropriate level, and it's just a matter of luring the right person to this to our department. It's going to be a great opportunity for whoever gets.
So there'll only be 2 positions.
Yes.
Yeah, and I
Paul,
think
do
a
you
lot
wanna-
of this is, from my understanding, the guidelines are all set by the feds. I mean, the gentleman that was here consulting during that project, I mean, they have correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have a strict set of guidelines that you guys follow.
Yeah, Commissioner Mnuchin, that's correct. Most of the guidelines that you're looking at in the job specifications come from the FBI's quality assurance standards. In order to do DNA testing, you have to be accredited in order to get the information into what they call the CODIS system that allows you to match DNA against unknown samples. And in order to do that, you have to meet FBI quality assurance standards. The associate is slightly higher because in reality, based on the size of the lab that we're going to build to service this population area, it's a 2-person, at most a 3-person operation. So, and building it out within our physical facility, it's a 2 or 3-person operation.
So when you say 2 or 3, Lieutenant, Carl, I have this thing about these various positions, so I always like to keep on top of it. If it didn't go to 3, it would be maybe another DNA specialist.
Exactly. What you'd have is one supervisor, because we're required to have a technical lead in order to meet the accreditation standards for the FBI and the accrediting agencies, and we have to do it to ISO standards nowadays too. And then what you could be looking at is 2 technicians to actually process DNA. It's actually, and even the supervisors in reality, a working supervisor in order to make this work.
1 second, I think we have a question.
Is the lab going to be on site at the police department, or is it?
That is what we're looking at right now, is to actually build it within our existing facility.
And where do you go to search for I'm assuming you don't have the people on staff now that would qualify, so where do you look for these types of really highly specialized people?
We'll be out looking at, don't tell the sheriff's department or anybody else, we're actually looking to pick up people who are already trained. Because of the size of the lab, we're not going to have the luxury of saying that we have a 1-year or 18-month or 2-year training period. So we're looking at other places where people are already working. That could be private labs, that could be the military. That could be other potentially government labs. That could be people out of state. I've had the pleasure of meeting some very competent individuals, many of whom I would love to be able to recruit into this position in some of the labs out of state. And they've had a variety of experience. Again, it ranges from private labs to one of them actually did some work for the military, then a private lab, then ended up working for a governmental agency.
And the location was within the existing location of our lab. We looked at it and we found extra space that was not being utilized correctly. That's how we were able to do it.
Yes. When do you think that this lab is going to be operational? Year and a half?
We're about to hit some critical decision points, but yeah, we'd be looking to probably 12 to 18 months in order to bring it online and fully accredited. And one of the reasons it's here is that supervisor's position is absolutely critical. We need to get them on board. We'd like them to actually help design the lab facility so that we have it, absolutely right and working in a way that will function best for us and the regional area.
Yes.
I forgot to ask one question. Both these positions are funded by this federal. It's a grant. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is grant funded.
Is it granted for like 1, 2, 3 years, or what's the or?
It doesn't have a time frame on it. It goes until we expend the money. Right now, based on available funding, I would anticipate 3 to 5 years.
Are these permanent positions that we're proposing, or are they going to be temporary, similar to the ones that we dealt with about 5 years ago?
Commissioner Gantz, Lieutenant Povolitis and I have discussed this, and I think we may be bringing this as a unclassified appointments when the time comes to go out and fill these positions. And our last discussion centered around that. So.
Also, Lieutenant, isn't it your intention to open this up to for our services to be used by other?
Yeah.
So there's a potential revenue stream coming in.
As Commissioner Gantis was asking that question, I sort of neglected to fill in the other part. Is we are looking at the potential of looking at it as a revenue stream. That if using excess capacity that would be in this lab to provide services to other cities on a fee-for-service basis with the backlogs that currently exist. Both of the major labs in Los Angeles County currently outsource to private labs some of their DNA testing. Then it has to come back to the government lab where it has to be technically reviewed because only someone from a government agency under the FBI standards can load it into the CODIS system. So that takes some time. We would be setting up something that would allow us basically to provide full service where we could, move into that field, provide the service, charge the fee, and do the CODIS upload also.
And there's only 2 locations right now, right? The FBI and the sheriff's, right?
Well, actually, when I refer to 2 majors in L.A. County, I'm actually referring to Los Angeles Police Department and L.A. County Sheriffs.
Okay.
They have some separate facilities, but they have the joint facility at Cal State L.A.
Okay.
But that still doesn't. I mean, we are going to consider, Matt, the fact that if this is on temporary funding, that we're not going to open it. I mean, make these permanent positions such that we go through the whole layoff and all that stuff if we lose federal money.
That's correct. If there's any inkling that we could run out of funding for this, then we would consider that.
I move for approval of the class specs.
Any other question?
Well,
I thought I saw a hand over there.
I just have a quick question. Does the city of Glendale already have a backlog dealing with DNA analysis on crimes committed in Glendale?
Let me answer it this way. Right now, we're currently serviced by one of those major labs. So you're at their whim on setting the priority. On a good day, you probably have a 4-month wait for your DNA analysis. We've had other DNA analysis sit for over a year. Most of the labs, as I said, I've looked specifically at 3 labs on the scale that we're looking at. All of them are turning their samples in 30 days.
Well, I recently heard on the news, whether or not it's to be believed, but LAPD DNA analysis has got a backlog of over 6,000 cases, rape cases only.
And one of the issues that's come up there is that what's happened.
So I'm just wondering, are we going to be bombarded? Are these 2, individuals in the lab going to be bombarded?
No, actually, well, as I said, in looking at this, we really looked at this from the standpoint: is this something that's feasible to do? And we've looked at Colorado Springs, which services a population area about the same size as the Tri-City area. We've looked at Scottsdale and Mesa, all of which run their own labs, all of which run about the same scale that we do, all of which have the opportunity to use a larger facility if they so chose. They have all chosen to do their own lab for the same reason. They don't have the control when it goes into somebody else's priority system. One of the scientists that I was talking to in the lab, one of the questions we would ask is, if you really needed one turned fast, how fast could you do it? And I've heard answers from 24 to 72 hours, which all makes sense. And she kind of goes, well, I live fairly close by and I'm a fairly light sleeper. So I could do it in about 19 hours. So, I mean, it offers them the priority that if they have an absolute high priority case, to walk in, they're not arguing with, a million other people. They can walk in and say, you know what, I need this one done, and we need it done fast. This is a high priority for whatever the reason is. And physically, you can work it through the machine. As I said, 24 to 48 hours probably to work it through the process is about right.
Okay.
It can be done for.
Thank you.
And Lieutenant, you've had, from my understanding, you've also had situations where innocent people have been waiting for this results of this stuff to come back, correct?
Yeah, you are at the mercy of a larger system and a larger priority system, and every lab has to prioritize what they do based on what they have coming in, and usually property crimes take a back seat to violent crimes, and then you look at the gradation of violent crimes. If homicides are probably going to get a run ahead of something else. The facilities that we've looked at, as said on the scale that we're looking at doing this, most of those cities don't have an incredibly high violent crime rate. They use this a lot on property crime rates, and the use of DNA to reduce the incidence of property crime in a community has been very successful.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I moved.
Yeah,
Be
second.
approved.
Second?
I just have one real quick question, because I have a concern about these individuals being unclassified. And we've been through this a number of times, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but I believe you said it looks like we're going to get funding for 3 to 5 years.
That would be my best estimate right now. We have a certain amount of funding on the table. We are asking for some additional funding. Those funds have to fund construction, equipment, operations, everything, while we get it up and running. And then it's hard to get people to talk to you about what they will or won't do with you for a DNA lab when you're talking in hypotheticals, because if you're not a accredited DNA lab, there are other people have already done their workarounds to deal with
Right.
their backlogs. So we need to put that in place and put it all together. So as I said, depending on whether or not we get some additional funding, we're probably looking right now, my best estimate would be 3 to 5 years. So we're running on parallel tracks here in terms of construction, trying to get the right person in. You've hit about the limits of my technical expertise. I'm not a DNA expert by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have the biological sciences background. I've had about 4 lessons from 4 different very bright people on how this process works. And it's a learning experience every time on how they unzip, multiply, mark, identify, analyze the whole process. So bringing this first individual in is absolutely key to the success of this lab. We are looking for a very unique individual who knows how to build one and run one.
All right. So the bottom line is, down the road, 3 to 5 years, all of a sudden, funding runs out. These individuals are so highly trained they can walk out the door and get a job the very next day someplace else.
In all likelihood, it's that DNA is on the cutting edge of law enforcement. We're not the only people who are looking at labs. So this isn't what I would call an easy project, but you have major labs out there, and as I said, in some of the folks that I've talked to, they have other opportunities available to them other than the places they're currently working now, and some of them choose to avail themselves, and some of them are just very content where they're at.
Okay. Thank you.
Roll call?
Commissioner Coleman,
Yes.
Fine,
Yes.
Gregorian,
Yes.
Cantus.
Yes.
Menuchyan.
Yes. What's next?
Public hearing, request to suspend competition and grant appointment by recognized attainment to 2 power plant series positions.
Mr. Doyle, is this the one that we've been trying to get taken care of for a while?
Mr. Chair, it certainly is. It's good to see all 5 of you here, so we can
I could leave.
Do it fast before they lose
I'm
something.
getting ready to
lose
leave.
somebody. Well, as you read from the report, this is, again, a request to suspend competition and grant appointments by recognized attainment. This is a very, very rare thing that we're asking you to do. Under both the Charter and Civil Service rules, the Commission does have the authority to grant these appointments based on recognized attainment. I've put forth the citation from the rules that authorize consideration of these positions. And I think the the key is that we're looking at a situation where we have individuals with highly specialized skill sets to where truly if we were to go out and recruit and post a job bulletin and advertise, we wouldn't find individuals who are as well qualified as those who have literally been in this position working for this private contractor up at our landfill for the past, in one case, 9 years, and in the other case, 15 years. So again, the situation, as the staff report indicates, involves the very specialized power plant or power generation plant that is run at our Shoal Canyon landfill, and the two individuals who've been working there under the supervision of a private contractor. As the staff report indicates, the city recently purchased this facility, and thus we're seeking to go ahead and hire these individuals as city employees and dispense with any type of competitive process and bring them on. At this point, be happy to answer any questions you may have. We have plenty of people here from the Water and Power Department. In fact, Steve Lenz, who's the Assistant General Manager for Supply, is here, and he may want to say a few words about the project in general. In addition to that, we do have the two individuals who are under consideration for this recognized attainment here this evening, in case you'd like to address either of them. So with that, Steve, you want to...
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Commissioner Gregorians, good to see you back. We did quite a great deal of work with Commissioner Gregorian on the Water and Power Commission, so good to see you back in service. I'm Steve Lenz, the Assistant General Manager of Supply for Glendale Water and Power. In December of 2009, City Council approved the buyout of what we're now calling the Shoal Canyon Landfill Gas Compressor Plant. There's some equipment up at the site that takes the gas that's gathered in the system, compresses it, cleans it, and sends it down to Grayson for burning to generate electricity. And they approved the buyout for $23 million. It saved the city $9 million, which immediately led to a reduction in electric rates of 9%. So this is a pretty important deal. As part of that approval, we indicated to Council that the $9 million in savings included the cost for these two gentlemen that have been working there, in one case since 1995 and the other since 2001. And while we're not legally obligated, the prior operator had a great deal of admiration for these gentlemen and wanted us to do what we could to bring them on board. So they're currently operating the plant on a 6-month service contract with the old owner. That expires July 4th. So we met with Mr. Doyle and GWP staff and tried to identify positions where the skill sets were similar, and we determined that the power plant operator and the power plant control operator were the straightest, were the most appropriate match for their specified skills. As Mr. Doyle said, Brad Everett's here, Tom Streit's here. Basically, we believe they're the most qualified in the world to run this particular plant. They've, like I said, been running it since 1995. It was a rare opportunity for us to buy this plant and save some money for the city, and we think it's going to save some money for us well into the future. So we would just request that you approve these appointments by attainment. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Commissioners. Yes, sir.
I do have quite a few questions, if that's okay with...
Fire away, sir. It's all yours.
Okay. Who runs the operation when these gentlemen are on vacation or on some sort of leave? Are there other people that step in from your department that fill in when they're not there?
Prior to our purchase, these two gentlemen ran it. They were on call. You would have, they would take turns being on call, so if something happened in the off hours, they would come up and take care of the plant. Our plan now is to, once we bring them on board, rotate other staff from Grayson, which is only 5 to 10 minutes away, into the operation of the plant, and likewise rotate these gentlemen into the operation of the plant so that we have a full crew rotation and somebody there 24/7 that's just 5 to 10 minutes away to run the plant.
All right, so I understand then that there are other gentlemen that may not be as highly skilled as these two gentlemen, but they would be able to step in and keep the plant running should they be, again, on vacation or...
We're starting the process of training those staff people to rotate into the plant. I don't think they're ready today to do it, to step in, but we're in that process of training them.
Okay. This was a public hearing. I was wondering, Mr. Doyle, what kind of notice was given and to whom, and how was it sent regarding notification of possible other candidates for the position and or other people that may be interested?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Devine, there was no special notice other than the typical notice that's given on our agenda each time it's posted and distributed. This agenda is, and Ms. Torres could probably tell you specifically where it's sent, but this is sent out to all of the staff. It's sent out to the employee associations, including this. I mean, because typically you're dealing with, whenever you have public employee appointment items, they would go on closed session. But since this requires a public hearing, this was all made part of the agenda and essentially posted on our internet as well as, again, our employee associations. And that was a question when Mr. Lenz and I were talking about this in the initial stages about, how do you think our existing current staff will feel about this? And I think, between he and his staff and the other people that work primarily at the Grayson Power Plant, we felt that there would be no objection to filling these positions in this manner, and that it wouldn't be any type of a controversial move. It's recognized that these individuals have a very specific skill set and that they're ready to hopefully convey that to other staff members as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just a quick note on that. How many times, based on your experience, has this process been used previously? Based on your experience.
I've been here 21 years. I only remember this being done once before, and I think it was in the context of offering some promotions to a couple people who had an engineering background. But this is
not obviously a common.
No, and it's not something we want to
continue no problem.
do frequently.
Yeah, you indicated that you thought of this situation, and that when you discussed it with Mr. Lenz, pardon me, that you didn't think there would be other employees that would be interested or eligible for the position. But was there actually any overt attempt to contact other employees or send out a special bulletin, a special notice, or post it on the bulletin board at Grayson to let them know that these positions were coming up and anybody interested could file? Or
Commissioner Devine, on my part, no. There was no specific outreach. Again, the employee association, or all the employee associations, do receive the full packet, and this report was contained within that.
Do we have anyone here from the union?
Yes, we do. I was just going to ask if Mr. Lenz did anything beyond that to talk
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission,
employees.
we did talk to staff, and we have told staff about the position. Some of them are interested in training for the position, and they see it as a promotional opportunity as well. And we now have two, positions that are higher than some of the other level positions at the site. Mr. Escudero, who runs operations, is here, and I don't know if we heard specifically from someone who's interested in these particular positions, but we do have some who are interested in training and rotating into the operation of the plant.
Okay. Was there any thought given, in view of the fact that there might be other people out there that are interested or perhaps have similar qualifications, maybe not as good, but similar, adequate, and I don't know if this can be done in the city of Glendale, but appointing them to acting positions while you go through a exam or a notification process?
Certainly, Commissioner Devine, acting positions can be authorized for people who are not at this level. We could also take people in these classifications currently and rotate them in, or essentially it would just be a reassignment of specific power plant control operators or power plant operators into that assignment up at Shoal Canyon. That could have been done, but why we're preferring to do it this way is that really the time frame and the amount of time that we have, where this deal was literally done in December. I think it was finally inked on Christmas Eve, and Mr. Linz was on vacation, and all kinds of things were going on. And given that we only had 6 months to do all this, we felt it would be more appropriate to work with the individuals that we had there who were familiar with running this operation for all those years.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, and as Mr. Doyle mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, we really believe we're not going to find anybody more qualified than these gentlemen to run the plant. So we have the time frame, we have the situation. It's extremely rare where you have a situation where you have a private operator running assets in the city that gives you the opportunity to buy it out, and so now you have this asset in the city that you need to run, and that you're able to use the employees that have been running it since 1995. So we actually had a discussion about that, doing promotionals, doing open recruitments, and we just thought at the end of the day we're not going to find someone more qualified, and we're up against a 6-month time limit on the service contract, which we probably could extend, but we still thought at the end of the day it didn't make sense under the circumstances not to try to appoint these gentlemen and bring them on board to run the plant that they've been running for a couple decades.
Okay. Did you say there's someone here from the union that?
Yes, we have the president and the vice president here.
Chair and Commissioners, Craig Hinckley, President of Glendale City Employees Association. Water and Power did talk to us about this specifically, and we didn't have any issues with them taking these specific folks into these positions based on the fact that this portion of the operation is fairly specialized.
Did you, when you say we discussed it, did you talk with any of your rank and file that could have possibly qualified? Did you?
I did have a discussion with a couple of folks from down there. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for now. I may have some later on.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Gantis.
The position of power plant control operator and power plant operator, these are positions that are under the GCEA, is that correct? Neither.
That's correct, yes.
They're not under the Management Association?
No.
So these gentlemen would be appointed to the position as power plant control operator and power plant operator, one or the other, whatever.
That is correct, yes.
How many such positions, how many people are currently power plant control operators in the city?
About 24.
And how about power plant operator? What, we didn't get is one, is one.
One vacancy for that.
Is one
Lower.
a supervisor over the other person?
No, neither of these positions are supervisory. The power plant control operator is a higher level position than the power plant operator.
So you entry level is the power plant operator,
Yes,
and then they move up to power plant control operator,
correct.
and then power plant associate control operator. That's my dig again. I like my dig.
So this is the reason why we need that DNA sample.
I know that. I think the government needs that. Government needs that.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
No, I have no other questions.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Do I have roll call?
Let's just, Mr. Chairman, if I could, let's be sure. One point brought up by Mr. Devine is important. Let's be sure to realize the motion is to specifically appoint these gentlemen to specified positions, and specifically within the charter, it does not apply. Am I not correct? To that position is now, if in fact one of them were to leave that position, it either have to come back to us for a similar thing, or it goes out to competition, either promotional, open promo, or open.
correct.
Am I correct?
Yeah, it would
I want
only
to
be
be
applied
very
in
clear
this
for that,
instance.
so that we understand that.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, if you've made the motion, we can have some discussion. Is that
Sure.
Okay.
okay? First of all, I certainly agree with and understand the fact that these two gentlemen are highly qualified and would probably at this time be the best people to fill the position. The thing I'm having a problem with, quoting from the Civil Service Rule, where it says that we can grant this, it says Civil Service Rule 5,
You're right,
Section
you're right,
10,
it's rule.
says that upon satisfactory evidence that competition is impracticable and that the position can be best filled by the selection of some designated person, at this point, am not really convinced that there's evidence showing that the competition is not practical. Again, I concede to the fact that there's no doubt these gentlemen are well qualified, but I really didn't hear anything that convinced me that every avenue was approached to find out if there were other people in the department that could handle it and would. And also the fact that when I asked it when they're not there, the fact that there are other people that can run the plant or do the operation makes me feel that there might be somebody down there. When the GCA representative indicated that he talked to a couple of the employees, again, I believe it was mentioned that there were 24 employees in that realm that could be eligible. To me, that didn't attack or address all the employees that could possibly have been involved. Also, the fact that you can put these gentlemen in an acting position until you exhaust all of the possible avenues or outreach to find out if other people are available, I feel that at this point I would be hard-pressed to approve this, knowing that you can accomplish, possibly kill two birds with one stone. You appoint them to acting positions and then exhaust the possibility of other people interested and or qualified for the position.
Commissioner Devine, I'm not sure how to respond to that other than to say, I mean, we're looking at an operation that needs staffing right now. And again, I don't think Mr. Lynn said that he could easily substitute existing staff into this. I think when you asked him that question, he demurred a little bit. I think the intent is to train other people to where when these gentlemen do want to take a vacation, we're able to get them there. And that's going to take time. I mean, it's a very specialized plant. But again,
Sorry, I think, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think and I do agree with you on this, I think what Commissioner Devine was saying, he does not feel that every effort was made to go out there and try to find other candidates either. And I do agree with him. We understand these individuals are specifically specialized for this. We understand that, we respect that, and at least for myself, I'm going to go along with it. But I do agree with him that not every effort was made from December until now to make this publicly available. Is that?
You're exactly right, yes. Thank you.
That's my understanding, and I agree with him. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Devine, I just want to clarify the point on whether we thought someone could do it. Our plan was actually to use the expertise of these two gentlemen to train our folks to do it. Our folks can't do it now. That's why we want to hire these gentlemen, bring them on board, and then try to build a rotation of our folks in there so that someone else can be there in the case of an emergency. They can't do it now, and that's why we're going this route, is to bring these people on board.
What would be the problem as far as water and power is concerned if these gentlemen were appointed to acting positions? They would be on board right away to go along with Mr. Doyle's concern about needing somebody immediately, and at the same time it would give other people an opportunity to be interviewed and go through the process. And then at the end of that, if you find no one, like you say no one exists, why then, whether the process takes 3 months or 6 months, then they would be put in permanent positions.
And just to clarify, so we appoint these two gentlemen by attainment to acting position, to acting in these two positions? Don't they already have to be employees to be acting?
I think
Correct.
they do.
When you had asked about acting, I thought you were talking about any existing staff on board at the city, but these two individuals would not be eligible for an acting assignment.
Because they're not current employees, correct?
Yeah, an acting assignment is essentially a promotion where somebody, well, it's a temporary promotion of somebody filling in for someone else
Okay.
in a vacant position.
Okay, I understand that. And then you mentioned that it might be possible to extend the deadline. I think you said it was July 4th or something.
Yeah, our current contract's through July 4th. We haven't, that's why we've been trying to scramble to get this done. We haven't had a discussion with Shoal yet to say, gee, how long can we do this? They extended it 6 months as a courtesy because, as Mr. Doyle indicated, Council approved this December 15th, and we closed the sale January 4th, and we couldn't resolve that issue in 2 weeks. So they gave us 6 months. They don't really want to extend it if they don't have to.
Okay.
So
I'll tell you what my problem is. That, again, I certainly agree that these gentlemen, I'm convinced that they're the best qualified for the position. The problem I have as the Civil Service Commissioner is that I have to think about all the candidate pool out there, and I would have a hard time saying that, just based on what I've heard here, that this is the best and the fairest to all possible employees to follow this route. And that's where I'm having a problem, going along with the attainment.
are
Commissioner
you
Devine.
referring to a promotional? Is that what you're thinking? You're referring to...
Whether it's promotional or whatever you want to call it, as a Civil Service Commissioner, I have to make sure that all people who are eligible or interested have a fair and equal opportunity to apply for a position and fill a position. I don't see that happening here, and that's the problem I'm having. And if there's some way that we can have our cake and eat it too by getting these gentlemen in the position, apparently the acting part doesn't solve the problem. So if they go along with another extension, again, to exhaust the possibility that there might be somebody else out there that you would want to put in the position.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Are you done, Mr. Devine?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think it's important, Mr. Devine, to understand the process. What I think you're proposing, I understand what it says here, but what you're proposing, and I may be wrong, and so, Mr. Doyle, I'm going to ask you to walk us through the entire, civil service has its own unique, and I underline the word unique, set of requirements. It appears to me that in order for this to go out to competition, you need to have, and tell me if I'm wrong, Mr. Doyle, you can't just go out as a power plant control operator or power plant operator, because the class spec for that has its own unique, it has its general things, and there are going to be a lot of people that qualify for that. In this particular position, much, I think, similar to when we created the police recruit dash Korean speaking and police recruit dash Armenian speaking, we created a new class so that we could limit that to what we needed to do.
But you still did an outreach to recruit. I think that's where the problem is coming in.
Can I finish?
Oh, you can.
Okay. And the problem here is that in order to create this position, it's like moving a grain of sand on the beach. It's going to create a lot of other stuff, one of which is we're going to have to create all new class specification. And when the class specification is approved, it's likely to be in a position that it's only going to qualify these individuals. It has to be. Because you can't, if you keep the plant control or whatever, I get these terms confused. These particular jobs, yeah, they're going to qualify because it's the class spec that's there. So, and while I understand what you're saying, my understanding of what the special recognized attainment is, to me would be, if you're going to hire John Wooden to be the coach of your basketball team, not everybody's John Wooden. That's a recognized attainment. Or Thomas Edison to be the head of water and power or the electric people. But in this particular case, I agree with you, but I think the understanding of the process is such that I'm not sure that we're depending on maybe getting an extension, and if we don't, I think we're putting at risk a very substantial plant that has been it's a trailblazer. It's been there for a long time, capturing methane gas, and now putting it in a position where we can service our citizens at less rates. We've reduced rates to the citizens because we can recapture this, and we own it. We have the ability to own it, but we don't have the ability to operate it. We are having to contract this out, and it's possible this could take another year if we have to go through the process of a new class. Am I wrong on this, Matt? Do we not have to redo the class spec?
We'd have to
I think
create
we're
a
going,
whole new one.
We are going
Okay, I think we're going off well, I understand what you're saying. Commissioner Devine's concern is 6 months have gone by, absolutely no attempt has been made to recruit anyone for this position.
We don't have a position.
One second, I'm not done yet. What I'm saying is, I understand your point. We're not going to resolve this. There is a position for 6 months that could have been, there was no attempt made, period. That's his concern, and I understand that. And I understand your point, too. We at this moment, we are cornered. We don't have an option at this moment. We have to go along with this thing. But I do agree with you. The process, for the past 6 months, nothing has been done to even try to find someone for these positions. Not that these individuals are not qualified. They are qualified. So I completely understand. But at this moment, based on what I'm seeing, at least I don't see any other option but to go forward. We've had a motion. We've had a second. Let's take a roll call. Let's see where this thing falls.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could just one last comment.
Yes.
Members of the commission. I mean, it's important to highlight that this is a very unique plant.
We've heard that. We know that. We're not disagreeing with that. We are all aware of
Pointing
that.
out to somebody else, there's nobody else that has worked at this plant other than these two gentlemen. So I just want to emphasize that because that is the uniqueness of their
We
experience.
know that.
And that's the only reason I'm not arguing the point, because I couldn't agree with Commissioner Devine's feelings about being a civil service commissioner and having a responsibility, to each and every employee in the city, particularly those other 23 operators that are going to be trained by these two gentlemen. I mean, it sticks in my craw, and I second it. I personally don't like this idea of recognized attainment. But given the nature of where we are right now, I'm going to go along with it. Because I believe that you and the city are telling me is true, that these two individuals are by far the most qualified.
And I don't think anybody questions that. And
I have one more question on your comment that there are no other options. It's my understanding you need 5 affirmative votes to pass this.
Correct.
If you don't get that, what are the options?
The options at this point would be to have Mr. Lund see if the contract can be extended to retain these individuals as private contractors for however long it would take for us to conduct a recruitment. Following that, we would then just do an open recruitment process to fill this position and see what we get as far as applicants. My impression would be that these individuals would apply and be determined to be the best qualified individuals based on their experiences. So, in my view, it would be an exercise that we'd be going through that would come up with a similar outcome than what we're proposing here.
So we do need a 5.
We do need a 5, yes,
So
to approve an appointment by recognized attainment. In the absence of that, we would have to do a recruitment to somehow fill these positions, and these individuals would certainly apply and have to go through a process which would take probably a month and a half, depending on how long we keep it open, and would be how we would fill these positions. So.
If these two individuals decided that they wanted to live on the East Coast instead of the West Coast and they both left tomorrow, would you shut down the operation? Would there be no other options to keep it running? Mr. Lyons?
That's a very good question.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we'd scramble to find someone to cover it. We'd work with Shoal and try to find somebody else out there that's got some experience with landfill operations. Like I said, we've started to have our folks go up to the site and started to train them. I'm not exactly sure where they are in terms of being able to take over, but we'd scramble and try to get it covered. We're hoping to avoid that by keeping these gentlemen on board.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, can I make two other points?
Please, go ahead.
As far as
And we're going to take
exploring
roll call after that.
every option, there is an option under the rules in Rule 5, Section 9. It's called temporary employment, and it would enable the city to make a temporary appointment of anyone to a position that cannot exceed 6 months. And once a list gets established for the position in question, we would have to then stop that temporary appointment within 30 days of that appointment and make appointments off of the list. So that is a process that we can utilize. Appoint these individuals to temporary appointments and do a recruitment. There's nothing I'm reading in the rules that require them to be city employees in order to be eligible for a temporary appointment under the rules. So that is an option. The second point I wanted to make is that, again, I certainly appreciate the concerns Commissioner Devine is raising as far as what other options. And I will say, none of us like the concept of a recognized attainment or the suspension of competition, because it goes against what civil service is all about. I mean, this is a merit-based system where people test and the best person does the job. But I just want to convey to you how seldom we've ever come to you with this sort of a thing. It's not something that we've ever abused. It's not something I'd ever be comfortable with bringing to you on a routine basis to sort of bypass the system.
I hope not.
I personally believe in the process. I think we run a very tight ship as far as getting our exams open, competitive, and getting the best person for the job, which is a reflection of our workforce. But in this case, I again think that this is not something we've ever abused, and we're simply asking in this situation to consider this based on just the very specialized nature of this operation. It's very unique. You're not going to find two individuals like this anywhere.
If you do a temporary appointment,
Yes.
and you go out and advertise and recruit for the exam, and again, I would assume it would be done in-house. You would not go outside for the recruitment, and you get no applications. Could the process be short-circuited at that point and terminated, and the two gentlemen put into the positions permanently without going through, a long time frame?
We'd have to be back here with a request. There's no way to short-circuit the system.
No, my concern is that I'm not convinced that there aren't people out there that want the job or would apply for it and, may qualify for it. Especially, again, if these gentlemen for some reason leave or one of them leaves, you're going to have to take someone from inside. So if you go through the process with a temporary and you get no applications, then you could bring it back to the commission to terminate the process, and we could go ahead and approve the attainment. Is that a possibility?
Well, we wouldn't have to go back to the commission to terminate the temporary appointment.
No, I'm saying you come back to the commission to terminate the exam process if you had no applications filed for the position.
Yes.
And at least then I would know that we've been fair in including everyone in the outreach, and if no one wants to apply, that's fine. So that's a possibility?
Yes. Let me just make it clear. You're suggesting that we appoint these individuals temporarily, do a promotional-only recruitment to solicit people internally for this?
Well,
or
when
do
you
an
say
open recruitment?
Open recruitment.
Meaning people from outside the organization and inside the organization, whoever would be interested.
Well, my main concern are the people that are working for the city of Glendale, that they have an opportunity to one, be aware of this position, and two, to either apply or decline to apply for it. So whether it's open or promotional, I don't know. I mean, that would be up to you, but as far as I'm concerned, I would be satisfied as long as I know that at least the 24 employees that were mentioned here were aware of it and had an opportunity to say yes or no on whether or not they go with it. And whatever how that's accomplished, whether it's open or promotional, and as long as we can do a temporary, that would be my
We could
position.
survey those employees if that suffices.
If you want to continue this one more week and survey the employees and bring back something, apparently the other commissioners aren't as concerned about it as I am, but since we need 5 votes, that would satisfy my concern.
Well, I think this is going to be resolved. I mean, at this moment, from what I'm hearing, we only have 4 votes. So, and there should have been Plan B planned for this because, at least, I mean, unless they knew 100% you're going to have 5 votes. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir. Was there something that you wanted to address?
I just was going to respond to the temporary appointment, and I guess for Matt, I just had the question of, I presume if we did that in 6 months, we wouldn't have time to come up with a more specific specification that dealt with landfill gas. We'd have to go out and promote for the generic power plant operator, power plant control operator, and you'd end up with a bunch of people who really aren't qualified. And we can do that, but this comes back to Matt's comment about, we know that at the end of the day, you're going to end up with these 2 gentlemen, so what are we really doing here? I mean, we'll do that if you need us to do that, but this is an important plant. We've saved the city $9 million bringing it on board. We need somebody who knows how to run it to keep it and maintain it in the safe and efficient operation of the plant, and it just makes sense. And Mr. Doyle and I agree that it's a unique situation, but the facts are there to support the appointment by attainment.
Yeah. We agree with you. The only thing is, I think my fellow commissioner is not convinced that you did everything within the 6 months to make any kind of outreach. That's all. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Devine, I wanted to comment on probably, I think what I'm hearing your concern to be is there wasn't adequate notice for a public hearing. And I think when you have a purchase of this size, certainly with 24 employees, it isn't something that goes unnoticed. This item has been on the civil service agenda at a minimum of 3 times. So each time it's gone back to the union. They've been notified that this item's coming forth. And I can't comment on the specific impact that it's had, but certainly it wouldn't be something that would go unnoticed in a group of 24 individuals who would otherwise be interested in this position. And certainly none of them are here to speak during oral comment on this item. So if your concern is that there may be individuals in the city who could potentially be interested and they didn't receive adequate notice, I think given the number of times it's been agendized and then continued, the number of times that HR has contacted the union and notified them, don't come to this meeting because we're not moving forward, and certainly the impact that that the purchase has made to the overall operation, I think there wouldn't be, if you haven't heard about the position, then you're hiding under a rock.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just one more important point from John Escudero, my operations supervisor, is that the 24 people who potentially could qualify are already in the position. What Mr.
Now you're
Escudero
confusing
indicated.
us a little bit more. What do you mean?
They're at the same level as
Okay.
control.
Right,
Not
so
in the same
those
position.
in-house that might qualify are already in the position.
Not these positions.
Not these positions, but
Okay.
these classifications.
Okay.
And so
All right.
it wouldn't be a promotional opportunity for them. And in fact, those that are interested, as I mentioned earlier, will be able to rotate into the plant. So you have people that are existing power plant control operators that will, after training, end up being basically in these positions. We're going to rotate people in.
Okay, well, that's
If
something.
that sheds any light.
Yeah, it does, because I was under a big misapprehension, or understanding. You've created 2 new positions then?
Correct. The city council approved two.
And these are the positions, the people that are in the existing positions, we now have 26 positions, right?
There are
A total of
24 power plant control operators that work out of Grayson. There is one new power plant control operator that was approved by council. That's one of these positions. And then there's a second one, a power plant operator, which is a slightly lower level position that was created from this one. So when we and that's vacant. And if I could clarify, the classifications below power plant control operator that people would promote into would be, again, operator and auxiliary operator. How many people are in those feeder classifications? 4. Okay. So there aren't a whole lot of people below either of these positions. The 24 refers to people who are already at the level of control operator.
Okay. Well, that's where I didn't understand, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Lenz, the fact that they're already at the position, and so by putting these 2 people in the position would not be taking away the opportunity for the other 24 to promote up into
no, not at all.
Into this position.
No, those 24 are at this level already. They just happen to be working out of the Grayson power plant, not at the Shoal Canyon landfill.
Actually, it gives them an opportunity to learn more so that when they are ready to promote up, they're going to have that many more skills.
Okay, well, if I would have understood that an hour ago, we would have 5 votes and be the end.
Now you lost my vote. Can we have a roll call, please, for God's sake?
So do we have?
Yes, we do. Shh.
Commissioner Coleman?
We're almost there.
Commissioner Coleman?
yes.
Devine?
Yes.
Gregorian?
Well, I would like to do the last one because I don't trust anyone. Yes.
Gantis?
Yes.
Manukian?
Yes, what's next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Chair,
Doyle.
members of the commission, the agenda forecast is...
Can we interrupt, please? Congratulations, gentlemen, and welcome to the city of Glendale.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I did anyway. Be so pushy.
Huh?
Thank him. Congratulate him.
You can thank him when you raise your hand.
Can I re-vote on chairman?
I'm just fucking kidding.
You guys, I mean, that DNA, it's so...
Come back next to me. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
It's okay. We were just talking about the agenda forecast, the upcoming meetings. Again, we continue to anticipate having class specifications for revision at each of our upcoming meetings. The July 14th meeting, I would say very tentative. We hope to have those rule amendments back to you. There's still a few things that we're looking at, some legal opinions that we're seeking. The meeting of the 28th, advertising budget expenditures report, which would cover the last quarter of the 09-10 year. And then, again, going to the August meeting, we'll have the end of the year hourly employment report. Hope to have the annual activity report on September the 8th and whatever else you'd like us to.
The July 14th meeting, I will not be here. I will be up in Lake Tahoe for starting from the 8th until the second meeting. I won't be there either, the 28th. So, all yours, babe.
Oh, okay, I'll fine. Fill your shoes.
It's all yours. Okay. Any questions, gentlemen? Gigantis? Gregorian? Any questions? Okay.
Well, I think we should move the civil service rule amendments then to August 11th, I would suggest, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So that you could be, I think it's always nice to have all of us here if we can.
Okay. Everybody else okay with that?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Then we'll move them. All right. Any other items? What's next?
Reports and information past due employee performance evaluations.
Mr. Gantis, you want to handle that?
I do, thank you. No past dues from the city manager's office, no past dues from the city treasurer's office, no past dues from the fire department, no past dues from Glendale Water and Power with 377 employees, no past dues from the police department with 364 employees, and no past dues from Public Works with 292 employees. Out of a total of 1,772 salaried employees, we have 13 first notices that are pending and 4 second notices and no third notices. This is very, very good, and we're very proud of that. But we need a few more of these departments that are no past dues, so let's get on some of these.
Okay. What's next?
Civil Service Commission and our staff comments.
Okay. Mr. Devine.
I have a couple of comments. Number one, I know we had discussed this before when we had different members on the commission regarding the minutes and whether we go with action minutes or we go with the full-blown minutes as we have here. Seeing that the staff still has to spend a lot of time to write up these full minutes, and still seeing that sometimes the interpretations aren't quite right, I'd like to ask if I could have this item agendized so we could discuss it again, whether we would go to action minutes versus these minutes. And
Yeah, is it, can we get this agendized so we can talk about this?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. That would be very easy to do. We did a staff report the last time, and I can simply
dust it off,
regurgitate that report and bring it to you. So whenever,
You guys
looking
okay
at
with
the
that?
agenda
You
forecast,
guys talk about it?
whenever you'd like that brought back, we can bring it back.
Okay. Was that it?
okay, no, one other thing. Some time ago, we did a approval of some class specifications for, among other things, the Assistant Director of Community Planning. And at that time, we changed some of the qualifications so that all of the people that were brought in from the other departments into the Community Planning Department would have an opportunity to vie for the management positions. I didn't realize, but at that time, we did not do a revision for the Director of Planning and possibly the Director of other organizations that were changed. And so I would like to ask that Human Resources bring back, I would say within 3 months, revised specs for any other job classifications that need to be revised similarly to what we did for Community Planning Department.
Certainly.
Is 3 months
Commissioner
a
Devine.
fair enough time?
That's more than enough. That would be the Director of Community Planning, Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing, Director of Community Services and Parks. These are the new departments that were realigned within the last 6 months, and we certainly do want to get those specifications in place. So we'll put it on the top of our list of priorities as far as these specifications.
Okay.
So.
Anything else? Commissioner Devine, anybody else? You guys okay? Yes,
Mr. Chair, I just want to announce, it looks like we will be back in our old home, the council chambers, for our next meeting.
Okay.
And I do want to congratulate, maybe prematurely, the Public Works Department for doing a really nice job refurbishing the council chambers. Got a sneak peek today, and it really, really looks nice.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Be good to be back.
Is there going to be special chairs for us? Or what?
No chair now.
Just for
no
John.
chair. Temporary chair. Temporary chair.
All right. What's next?
Closed session.
Okay. Are we reporting out from this, or
We will not be
we will
reporting
not?
on it.
Okay. All right.
So this would be, Mr. Chairman, this would be the close of the televised portion of our meeting. However, we would be adjourning after closed session, but we would not be reporting out.
All right. Thank you, sir. I always get those up.